watching the same clock I am. I'd like to go ahead and call the regular meeting of the City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. We are in regular session at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on September 17th, 2014. And we're opening the meeting at 1 p.m. We'll start up as far as the agenda goes. Item number 3 is for public comment. Do we have any public comment this afternoon? I did any public comment. I do have a public hearing, and I did get one item on public hearing. Was there another? Oh, okay.
President Garner, can we just
Suggestion?
remind everybody to turn their mics on, please?
Yes,
and put
please
those
have your
mics up
mics
to their
on so that you can be heard. If you're going to cough or something, or you want, you're welcome to turn it off or that sort of thing. You rattle papers, but when you're speaking, you certainly want to have it on. I forgot earlier, so I'm going to just leave mine on. Okay, we do have. Well, this was for item. Where's the agenda? Glenn, could you get clarification on this one? It doesn't say what item, and so I don't know whether it's public comment or public hearing. Public hearing, okay. So we don't have any comments, no public hearing, no public comment in item number 3, so we'll move on to the public hearing. Item number 4, which is to receive and hear all interested persons on the adoption of operating and capital budgets for the EDC for the fiscal year ending 2015. The proposed EDC budget, operating and capital budgets include economic development projects as defined in the Development Corporation Act, and so on and so on. Okay, time is allowed at 3 minutes. And I believe Gary Gillespie was the first to hand me one. Go ahead, Gary.
My name is Gary Gillespie, and I live at 10100 Rafter S Trail here. When I came up to the city a while back, and I looked over underneath the glass to see what was going on, and I saw your budget or proposed budget, I'm not sure which it was, and something that you had not put on last year, but you had put on this year, and it was $10,000 for this and $30,000 for this, I believe that was the amounts of money. And I went, oh, and there's no explanation, and then later found out, oh, it got pulled, no, it got discussed, but it wasn't pulled, but the agenda didn't say it got pulled, and so I was confused about that, and I looked through the budget that I asked Mr. Goldsby about, and I could not find it, and so I don't know, are you having $40,000 or $50,000 that you're putting into a development so that the private landowner doesn't have to pay? You're doing the beginning fees, or you're doing the beginning process, and then is that a phase 1, that phase 2 is going to be even more money, and phase 3 is more, so we're going all the way up the ladder. And so that was one of my comments on that. As far as your discussion on marketing, I think the marketing absolutely has to be done at some point. I think that's really important to push that. When I was on council, we looked into trying to get a little trifold that was popular at the time to be put in at the roads coming into Texas, and it was either astronomical or we couldn't do it. It was too expensive, because when I got on council, we only had just over $30,000, in the in our reserves, because the last payment for this, not this building, but the previous first building, was pulled out of the budget, and that's what was left for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Green.
Good afternoon. My name's Ron Green, 14255 Antonio Drive, and I'm here to talk about the same issues that Gary alluded to. We've been getting some mixed information out in the community regarding the possibility of EDC and the city using taxpayer money to help fund a in-stone take permit and a habitat conservation plan for a private property over on Scenic Loop and Highway 16. And I just say, at the onset, I do not think our taxpayer money should be used to help develop private property to that degree. I don't think that property should be developed to high intensity, and that's why it's protected currently by a Fish and Wildlife. We brought this up, I brought this up at the city council meeting last week, and the mayor alluded in one way that there's not going to be money used for this, and I did not see it in the current budget that's posted, so I hope that stays that way. I don't know how much latitude you have in the budget as you go forward, but I hope you take that under consideration as you go forward through the year, that you do not use our taxpayer money for this type of endeavor. If you do like to take on something like this, I think you should give it public visibility and due diligence that it deserves. Just a couple comments on the effort that's discussed. Incidental take permit is not a trivial exercise. If you look in the federal documents, there are 3 ways you can go. If it's just a very low impact, this is the diagram of all the steps you have to go through. If it requires environmental assessment, these are the steps. And if it requires an environmental impact statement, these are the steps. That $100,000+ quoted by Pate Dawson, just speaking from a contractor side, is only for that first step. Each one of these hurdles has to be crossed, and there were folks that opposed the action to reduce the size of that protected area. It was people not from Helotes, that would probably step up and oppose this, and at each hurdle there are going to be costs for Pate Dawson, there are going to be costs for technical experts, and there are going to be costs for attorney fees. And so you're not talking $100,000, you're talking several hundreds of $1,000s. So once you get into this, this is going to be a very slippery slope and a very tall hurdle to clear. That's land that was set aside for perpetuity up on the hill. It's not effective unless the surrounding lands are included, so they're not likely going to allow high intensity development on that corner. I personally don't have a problem with low intensity development there. I think it would be good for the corner, I think it'd be good for the community, but not high intensity. And the only way you're going to do that is by jumping that highest hurdle, and it's going to cost several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I hope we don't get into it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to thank you all for coming out to our meeting. I want to say just brief comments to clarify a few things. In December of 2013, the EDC and the City Council directed staff to begin efforts to attract a primary employer, such as a corporate headquarters or a regional headquarters, that sort of thing, campus type of environment. It will provide new jobs and bring added customers into Helotes stores and restaurants. Now, this is a complex and challenging assignment, and staff has been working on that, studying the situation and looking for ways to successfully reach that goal of attracting a primary type employer. However, a suitable solution has not materialized. Any EDC decisions toward this process or within this process have and will be public and are considered, will be considered with the corporation's mission and vision statements in mind, and let me read them to you. The mission statement of EDC and our strategic plan says that our mission is to promote, encourage, and enhance the creation of jobs, the expansion of local tax base, and our quality of life through projects that assist in the retention and expansion of existing employers and which attract new employers and aid in their development and growth. The vision statement says our vision for Helotes includes a balance of sales and property tax that takes into account our town's historic roots and unique environment, and resulting in an improved quality of life for all Helotes citizens. So I want to assure you that's how we look at things, And I want to thank you for your interest in economic development in Columbus. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on in the interest of time. We have the consent agenda items, approval of meeting minutes from the last meeting on August 20th, approval of the monthly revenue and expenditure report, approval of renewing a management services agreement between the city and the EDC, and approval of a resolution adopting the 2015 investment policy and strategy for public investment for the EDC. Does anybody have any general questions on these items 5 through 8?
Is that number 8 the same as it was last year?
Blaine, could you answer that, please?
The investment policy is the same, yes, sir.
Yes, Bert, sorry.
Forget my name.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I just had two quick questions on number 8 also, and I apologize for not calling you earlier, you probably could have answered it. On page 4 of number 8, the added, one under monitoring insurance coverage, the last sentence states in the last few verses, well, I'll read the whole thing. If any bank has acquired or merged with another bank in which brokered certificates of deposit are owned, the investment officer shall immediately liquidate any brokered CD which places the EDC above the FDIC insurance level. I don't understand that. Does that mean that there's a certain level I know that's insured. How would that put us above that level just because you went to another bank?
These would be brokered CDs that are above the $250,000 threshold.
Uh-huh.
The EDC currently doesn't have any brokered CDs, but if it did, we would have to liquidate all the way down to $250,000 because we would be.
So in other words, Rick, we would just break it down into another. We just would break it down into another CD with the same outfit.
At a different bank at that point.
We'd have to use a different bank. Okay, and then I had one other question, please.
On this, yes.
Okay. On page 7, is this, on page 7, number 7, under authorized investments, can we just buy a CD for 1 year and not over? Is that because of our budget, that we have to do a budget each year? Or the way I'm reading this, it says right there in the
No,
middle.
you can purchase a CD for up to 18 months.
Okay, but here it says not to exceed 1 year to maturity.
That is the weighted average maturity.
Uh-huh.
That is not and actually there's a difference here. If you look under number 2, fully insured CDs, up to 18 months.
Okay.
That's a regular CD.
Okay.
The brokered CD is under number 7, and that maturity cannot exceed 12 months. Again, we do not have any brokered CDs. There's nothing wrong with brokered CDs necessarily, except for you pay some additional fees that you don't pay with a regular CD. It's essentially a investment just like a stock would be at that point, which is
okay.
why we steer away from them, but there's nothing inherently wrong with them if you're making a good return on them.
Okay, well, I always was led to believe that we could get a CD up to 18 months.
A
And we
regular
can't.
CD,
A regular CD, you can't, but not a brokered CD.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, could I have a motion, entertain a motion for approval of the consent items?
I move we approve the consent items 5 through 8.
Second.
Okay, Keith, second by Pat. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was approved. The consent items are approved unanimously. Going to move into item number 9, which is discussion, direction, and or appropriate action regarding approval of the EDC strategic plan for fiscal year ending 2015. And I would say we pretty much need to approve it to this meeting, or we would put ourselves in a situation where we couldn't spend any monies until it was approved at a future date. So typically, this is the time to do it. Our last opportunity before the fiscal year begins. Okay?
one that's labeled 2014 is 2014,
right.
15.
It's 14 ending in 15, so October 1st, 2014 through September 30th of 2015. That's the time frame for this budget.
I'll
Bert, did you say something? Go ahead.
Let's make a motion.
All right, sir.
Make a motion that we discuss and/or do some appropriate action on agenda item number 9.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bert to discuss and, go ahead, Bert.
My idea is to go ahead and accept it, except, to me, we should, under projects, let's delete the Old Town Pelosi irrigation, project.
Can I step back 1 second, or I guess we can go ahead, I skipped it, item 9 is actually the strategic plan.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
what do we do?
That's what he's
That's
doing.
what, yeah, that's
what
what,
I'm
You
doing.
are, oh, I'm
So we're
sorry,
talking-
okay, I'm the
I
one
think-
that's moved ahead,
Yeah.
didn't understand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I like our strategic plan. I think it's well done. But I just would like as Ms. Massey said, that I don't think we need to have the Old Town irrigation, as one of our projects anymore.
Okay. I believe you're a second, Pat, would you like to say something?
Well, that's, under discussion, I agree with Bert on that. The only other suggestion I would have, if the rest of the group is amenable to it, would be under goal 3, just under implementation of targeted communications, remove the words B2B and B2C from the descriptions, or contained under priority 2. It would just read implement a business-to-business communications campaign rather than B2B, and implement a business-to-consumer communications rather than saying implement a B2C.
Okay,
you just want the acronym removed?
Just the B2C and B2B.
So just, you want the acronym to go away, but you leave the business to
Right.
business?
Right, leave everything just like it is, just take out the reference that specifically ties it back to the Squires plan, is all that does. I know that sounds like nitpicking, but I'd rather have it out of there.
okay, I would just point out to the board that, B2B and business to business and B2C, business to consumer, is not a Squires term, it's a general, industry term. But, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, no, it's an industry term. It's not specific to Squires.
Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't that right, Rick?
it's a business term, not specific. No,
Seen
yeah.
that? Fine.
No, I agree, it's just a business, it's a term that all businesses use.
That's fine, I just wanted to
Yeah.
disregard it.
Okay, so, yes, we had the two people, here, go ahead, Caleb.
So
you're
on
next.
the prior, item that, Bert brought up, I guess I would ask what exactly that refers to. I mean, if that line were to specifically refer to an underground sprinkler system, then I probably wouldn't have a problem with removing it. But if that line refers in any way to a plan or procedures to try to somehow water what's there and keep it alive over a period of time, I think that needs to continue. I guess that current effort is in the city's budget? Am I
Yes.
correct on that?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're talking about the line, on the bottom of page 5, if you're all on that, proposed, or well, now, the one that we're discussing, yes, I believe to clarify, in the past, there was discussion of doing underground irrigation, which was proposed in the initial plan when the Old Town improvements were provided. It was expensive then, before anything was done, it's even more expensive now. But it was something that the board wanted to keep into consideration. It is, we're talking about underground, not any plans. We do want to water our project, or somebody needs to
Well,
water
the
our
city,
project, and the city
it's
does
the
that.
responsibility of the city to maintain its own property.
Okay, any other clarification? You good on that? Okay, so, we have a motion and, I think the motion and second stands. There's no amendment to that. If there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that, amended 2015 plan, we'll call it 2015. I think the item in your,
You need to,
excuse me.
for clarification, read back what we're approving exactly.
Okay, would you like to have that stated again, or are you
Yeah,
good?
just-
You good? Okay, let me restate what I believe we voted on, and if anyone has a problem, we can re-vote, but, the approval was, the motion was to approve the proposed strategic plan, which will be for fiscal year ending 2015, so it goes from 2014, October 1st to September 30th, 2015. And, the only change from what was, submitted in your packet is to remove the line, the bottom line, under projects on page 5, under the work plan capital improvements.
Which was,
Okay, which was, the Old Town Helotes irrigation for future consideration line. We're scratching that line.
okay.
Is everyone good with how it went down now, or did you,
Yeah, I
you
just-
don't need to revote? Okay.
Can I,
Yes, sir.
is it too late to say
No,
something?
go ahead.
I noticed in the agenda item, it says fiscal year 2015, shouldn't it be 14?
Well, when you do fiscal year, it's
Fiscal year
usually,
ending.
yes,
Okay.
FYE is
If, it should be in, okay, ending
fiscal
doesn't
year
mean
ending.
Okay,
I
that's,
think that also includes the fiscal year,
okay.
even if you say FY 15. You can say it either way. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Let me get my paperwork flipped around here. Now, I was trying to get ahead of the game. We're on item 10, which is the fiscal year budget for 2014-2015, FYE 2015.
I move that we discuss and take action on item 10 as written.
Second.
Okay, Cynthia?
As I mentioned earlier, I would like to reinstate some money into the marketing, and I would be, I know that there's what's proposed, and there was about, 62,000, but, since a big portion of that seemed to have gone to Squires, that 28,000, I think I would be, since we have so much, we need to discuss more about that, and maybe, I guess my question before I ask about the money is, the plan that they sent us, and particularly, I'm mostly interested in their promotional brochures and the branding that they did for us, because we paid for that. Do we own those? Can we give that to another company to put together the brochures for us?
I can answer that. We only paid for a conceptual design, so we don't get the high resolution files of those media kit and the brochure, but another firm can reproduce that.
Okay.
And they have the capacity to basically copy it.
Okay, that's what I wanted, because I did like the branding that they gave us in those couple, and so so anyway, I would like to propose that we, instead of having 0, put it to 50,000 for marketing. Again, we all know what the stipulations are, that we know exactly each time something comes up that we have to vote on it.
I would like clarification on that, because we do a number of marketing things throughout the year, advertising in certain papers, publications that are $300, $400, $500 that we have never brought before the board before. So, could there be a friendly amendment to your motion, a certain dollar amount threshold that we would need to bring stuff back to the board on?
I don't know what,
We know inherently that y'all are talking about an additional contract with a marketing firm, okay? But we just don't want in the future to spend $400 at the staff level and then it come back before the board that y'all are displeased with that decision.
What would you suggest, or what would be a number that would be appropriate in your mind?
Glenn, 1,000? I would say $1,000 would be more than adequate on our day-to-day activities.
One thing I did want to throw out there for consideration as well is I really think that it would be, it would be a good idea for us to purchase an ad, either the city or the EDC, I'm not sure how it works, to be put along with the article that's gonna be published about Helotes in the travel magazine, Texas Highways. And I think it's not a cheap endeavor. I think it was what, 1,500? Do you remember, Glenn, how much? He has the prices there.
Yeah, I think, do you have
Printed it
those,
out
Sandy?
if
I don't know
everybody
they're
wants
in
a
the
copy.
packet. No, go ahead.
I mean, and this would definitely be something, that we would, I just want y'all to consider it. We don't have to vote on it now. A 6-page ad is $18.30, just to do it the one time.
1/6.
Okay.
1/6 page is $1,830. And that's basically all I'm gonna be asking for, or I think that we should do. We should have the ad with, you know, somewhere in the article, a good placement. So that would be a consideration, but I don't know if that's something that, we're not gonna know if it's gonna be June or July that this is gonna come out, and as soon as they find out, they'll let us know, and that would be in the spring that we'll find out, when it's gonna be placed, and then that's when we would, you know, put forth the ad, what we want. Whether the 1/6, which is the smallest, or larger, it gets more expensive.
Oh, Artie?
Yes, yes,
There,
Pat?
if Glenn pointed out to me, if you look at the back of the budget, he's got a list of proposed, expenditures there, the last page of the budget, where you've got the budget back under item 2.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at that earlier.
It lists a lot of those expenses.
Could you quickly just, explain that list to
Yes.
clarify?
I wanted to put together a list of prior expenditures that we have done in marketing, and then also highlight a few things that we could do for the 2015 fiscal year. I did put in the budget brochures to do a concept similar to what the prior Squires presented to us, that could go to business or business to consumer purpose. Put in the promo kits if we wanted to create something that was specific to luring a new business to Helotes. That would be, you know, the invitation letter, something that wouldn't get discarded in the mail, that would encourage someone to open it up and look at it. Photography, we've been told both by Squires and also by Gallus Pascal, who designed our website for the city and EDC, that photography could be improved upon in some of, not only the website, but in our marketing materials. So I did get an estimate on how much a professional photographer a day to come out here in Helotes and take shots and give us those files that are altered. We put in here SEO, search engine optimization. We want to go in and pay someone to program the back end of the website to rank higher in generic searches. We put in a line item for social media management. Right now, all of the social media that's being done, the city administrator does that on Facebook, Twitter, everything. I think that's a big burden. We have a lot of events going on in Helotes, and we could tie that, you know, the branding in and the implementation into the EDC budget, I think. The retail trade map's the same map that we've done. So we do send out a map or a brochure to all of the Texas travel centers in Texas, and that's something we've done on multiple occasions. We funded the project twice. We are currently just ran out of brochures, so I put that as another line item. Like you stated before, it's something that continually needs to be updated and modified. And then just put a line item for additional advertising. Things that we could do more locally, if we do print advertising, or if we need to do direct-to-mail pieces or anything. We did do that for like the big program. We sent direct-to-mail to all the businesses to let them know of that incentive that was in place. You know, that has to come out of our marketing budget.
Well, then I'd like to say, if the suggested price then is $40,800, I don't have any issues with any of this. Social media management, $7,500 seems excessive to me, but I don't know about I don't know how much, something like that. You're talking about somebody doing it for us?
That is correct. So you'd break that down into a monthly fee. It's something they do constantly. It's not just a one thing, one post and they're done. They are on it
Constantly.
weekly,
Well, yeah,
constantly.
you're right. It does take a lot of time. So anyway, I guess I'll revise my suggestion of 50,000 to 40,800. I mean, if this is a suggested amount, unless somebody else wants to add something to it.
Just for clarification, did that include anything for the Texas Highways ad?
Additional advertising, it says 5,000
5,000
there.
may not be able to pay for. I
So
don't
we
have the
could
prices in
maybe
front of me.
add some more money to the 40,800 and make it 42,000, 45,000.
And then does this list, Glenn, include the kind of miscellaneous items that we just discussed? Is there room in this figure for those items or not?
It is, yes,
It would be under additional.
additional marketing.
It would be under additional advertising. I wouldn't go with the exact dollar amount of 40,800, but something like 42,500 or 45,000, I think would
All
be
right.
more than covered.
I will revise it again. Let's go to 45 to give them, and as far as I think $1,000, anything over $1,000, you can come back to us for approval.
Okay, someone else, I wanna give everybody a chance to speak to the subject. Someone that hasn't spoken yet? Anybody?
So, how
Just as we're speaking on it, I don't think we actually have a motion on the floor. We had a motion to discuss at this point.
what do we need to close that and make another motion?
We have to open
We're
the motion
discussing.
once the item is on the floor, isn't it?
Pardon?
Once the item is on the floor, you don't have to open and close each portion of that listed item.
No,
We don't have, do we
we
have, we had a motion to discuss.
to discuss and take action on, but just to
Okay.
discuss it, we can discuss it. We don't have to take action until we're finished discussing it.
I think, I would just say that I think $45,000 is a reasonable figure, based on, the information we've been given.
Well, the only question I have is, do we need to make a motion to that, or wait till we've finished all the discussion and make one motion for
Well, I think
everything?
I'm just thinking that it makes sense to discuss and then, we can refine the motion to,
Yeah.
to add an amount. Does that sound reasonable? Since, someone else may want to do something different. I don't know.
I need to read Robertson.
Okay,
So that's just for the marketing piece of the budget.
yes,
We need to clarify that to the 45,000, I guess.
So that leaves 32,500 from that bottom, that excess of revenues over or under. That leaves 32,500, so to balance the budget, we need to do something with that. Put it back in reserves,
Yeah.
whatever.
does anybody have any, let's say, anybody have any more, discussion on the marketing portion before we move on to the rest? Because that will define it a little bit more for us on what else we need to do. I would like to say, since I'm the presiding officer, but I'm also a voting member of this board, so, I support, a balanced budget, with the current excess going into, at least some of that, a good portion of it going into the, increase the line item for marketing from 0 to, because I think that, the EDC goals call for this kind of action. We have, been proactive in capital improvements and community enhancement projects. We have supported business through, business retention and expansion, with, some of the things we do for business and our incentive programs. And I think it's time for the board to be proactive in promoting Helotes, expand our communication reach, increase the visibility of Helotes, and benefit all businesses, not just certain few businesses. There was money last year, as we just discussed, on the list that Glenn provided. And the board did invest in a marketing plan, and now it's time for us to implement our promotional campaign for Helotes, something that's sustained and consistent to attract, new shoppers, diners, event goers, new businesses, retail, dining, entertainment, and services, and increase the participation in our community, and truly promote what we have to offer, which is a lot. This is what EDCs do, and the law, recognizes this. The law that regulates the Economic Development Corporation allows EDCs to allocate 10% of their budget to marketing. And that I would urge the board to, put in up to, 10% of our budget in the marketing line. Again, to be defined later as to exactly what that looks like. And that would be, up to amount of $56,086. Anyone else? If not, we can move on to the other items, and then we can put numbers to these things.
Let's finish this one.
Okay, well, then I would.
Let's go to 50.
Okay, I would then, like to hear a motion with specific dollar amounts for marketing, and then we'll move on to the rest, so we can decide how much more that is and what we need to do. So would you like to amend your motion? or-
Sure, I'll
okay.
amend it. I mean, yeah. But 50,000, back to my original, okay?
Okay,
I'd second that motion.
okay. Then, we'll go to the question on marketing, the marketing line item. What we're doing here is deciding particular dollar amount to be placed in our marketing line item in our budget. FYE 2015, to the amount from $0 to $50,000. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that part is approved. That allows us then, to talk about $27,500. Still in excess to balance our budget, we need to allocate that amount of money, $22,500. I mean, I'm sorry,
$27,500.
$27,500 to, other line items, on the page. I'd like to go ahead and open up that discussion. Someone like to make a motion at this point? Or well, I'll make a motion to, open discussion on that remaining amount. Do I have a second?
I have a question about, we're gonna be taking out a C of O, apparently, if we all decide to vote on it, or we think for the new projects coming up.
Right,
When do we start paying that back? 2016, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Just to clarify for the board, when we were creating this, I had thought we would need something for that C of O, but, Rick pointed out that that payment would not start until our next fiscal year, so we do not have to include any payment any new payment in this, budget. I had a motion to discuss the
So-
remaining amount.
So I
Is there a
I second the motion to discuss.
Okay.
And I would, is there any reason why we can't just put the 27,500 in reserves? And I would, there's lots of things I would consider possibly using that for, maybe even additional marketing if we had a specific thing we wanted to use it for later. But given that we don't at this point, it seems to me that it should just go to reserves.
And if we were to do that, does that, just a question for staff, does that, leave it as how does that, where you can actually put it in reserve and not have it as an excess, or does it show as an excess? I'm not clear on that.
It's one and the same.
Okay. All right, so it would remain as an excess.
It just shows as part of reserve, right?
It's one and the same. Leaving the 27,500 where it is perfectly fine.
Okay. So, does anyone else want to speak to that?
I agree.
Okay. If not, then, I would entertain a motion for, a dollar amount attached, to the, or actually an allocation to the remaining amount of $27,500.
It's currently in reserve now, isn't it?
Well, it's
So
on
if we
the
take
draft
no
budget,
action,
it's,
Then it remains where it is without
okay,
action.
Yeah, we-
correct?
Artie, the only point of clarification, that other 50,000 needs to come off of the 77 to make the.
Correct,
Yeah.
we've already done that.
Yeah,
So
so
we're
then
down
it's-
to that number. If we did this, if we changed it in our budget, it would show 27.5 right now.
Yeah.
Okay? So there are no other motions? So then we need to make a motion.
Okay, let me,
Just go ahead.
if I can interject. A motion on the floor to the effect of approving item number 10 as written with the amendment of $50,000 in marketing is more than sufficient to approve this budget.
Okay, so we need to do that finalized approval.
Yes.
Could I have a motion for that, please?
Well, before you go on
Yes.
that, we're still in discussions about the entire budget, not item by item.
Correct.
We were talking about item by item. You're not gonna close the entire budget discussion yet.
Do you have something else you'd like to speak to, Keith?
I do.
Okay,
That's the $10,000 for conceptual design and land use plan.
okay,
And I just wanted to get more information about that, because I know we had briefly talked about where that money was to go, because I think there's an idea on where that money is to be spent, so can we get information on that?
Correct. The two projects right now we were planning on, one is that 15030 East Bandera Road, so the corner of Scenic Loop and Bandera Road. And the other was on Old Town Helotes off of Riggs Road, and it's owned by Mr. Buck, Bob Buck. So he's interested in seeing that property developed. He sat down with us, curious on what the next step would be for us to market that property. So that's, one of our ideas.
No, okay, so what specifically will that 10,000 bring us? What will we see from that?
There's two options right now. You can do a land use plan. That's kind of the basic design of what type of businesses and how they could be laid out on the property. In the second phase, if we wanted to do it, would be more of an architectural, a quick, design sketch for that project.
And
Okay.
the purpose is to,
It gives us the material to market the property. Typically, either when you have a developer, kind of depends, these are two different projects, either a developer you're marketing to or trying to get tenants into a property. If you show them just a raw piece of land, it's hard to see, for them to envision themselves in it. If you give them a conceptual plan, then they know more or less. I mean, obviously the actual product can be slightly different, but they have a better feeling of the property. It's just a marketing tool.
How many acres is each of those two locations?
The large one is 32 acres in total, and Mr. Buck's, I would, yeah,
oh, I've heard 8
6
at
to
one
7.
time, but yeah.
How much?
6 to 7 acres.
Okay.
Yes, Bert?
Does
Are
it-
we done?
Well, I was just gonna ask the final question, was who do we have slated to do that work?
We don't yet. I received a preliminary number to get this budget line item from Red Dog Engineering. Or,
So are we looking
Big
at
Red Dog.
architectural firms or engineering firms or both?
for them, they're a engineering firm, and they would have to subcontract with the architecture firm if we decided to go that
Is
route.
that gonna come back to us, or is staff managing at that point?
That would come back to the board. We would start the process, likely select the contractor, but the iteration of how this progresses with land use planning, impervious cover, basically they take the entire code book and they apply it to that property to see what is or is not possible. And those iterations would then come to the board for final approval before they completed their land use plan. Unless the board directed that they wanted to be a part of the whole process, select the contractor and go forward.
Well, it brings up interesting questions about the conceptual design itself and what kind of concept gets designed, right? I mean, it's just marketing anyway, but what does that picture of the concept look like that we're marketing? How is that determined? I mean, is it, an old boardwalk saloon, or is it I mean, what are the architectural design criteria we're putting forward saying we want this concept?
Well, the
to market?
architectural design, again, they would take our code book, which has the complete design standards for buildings within the community, and they would place those design standards on there so that it would pass both P&Z muster and also city council muster.
Right, but that's a really broad picture. You can go in there with any
Well-
kind of facility.
If I may, think about,
You have the floor.
I'm I'm sorry.
Well, hold on just a
Go
second.
ahead.
I think Bert was actually in front of
Go
me.
ahead.
All right, I can wait.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I was just thinking about the conceptual design. For example, that particular property on Scenic Loop in Bandera, that 32 acres, we've voted as a board to go for an employer, right, an employer-based kind of thing, primary employer. So that's what they're, the kind of building, whether it's one building or a campus-like building, they're gonna be able to show us what can be done there for, and they'll probably pick a certain kind of, employer, an employer that has maybe, 500 people or 30 people, or, how, and then they'll come and let us know, and then they're gonna have to, of course, do all of they'll probably look at the TEC regulations and everything, what can be put on that property because it's over the aquifer and that kind of thing. So that's basically what, and then when they go to their recon, in Las Vegas every year to try to show this, they can show this is what you can actually build there, and they'll say, oh, well, it's not gonna work for us, or that kind of thing. So I think, I already kind of have it in my mind and I don't think it's gonna be some big massive thing.
No, and the larger component of that is actually the land use planning part. It's not so much the building aesthetics, because that is dependent upon whoever eventually develops any of those sites. The big issue is the land use and what you can or cannot do on that property given its current restrictions. And this issue came up when Councilman Buys and myself went to Las Vegas. As you recall, one of the issues that they brought up was, what do you want there? What is it going to look like? How is it? We couldn't answer those questions because we weren't far enough along in the process, and we didn't have a study like this. So for larger projects, it makes sense. Now, why Bob Buck? Bob Buck is going to be instrumental in your Helotes Creek Linear Park project, because he will likely have to be the access point to the park, given the cliff that's on the parking area. And so you're going to likely need an easement across this property. Now, this is again not a quid pro quo, because we've been actively trying to get that property marketed, but there's problems with that site. It's not on Bandera Road. It's not on Old Bandera Road. It's behind a industrial area, and so we need to do something more than we have done to market that site to potential mixed-use developers. And so this is why we're looking at that site in particular, in addition to fostering goodwill, because we will have to garner an easement from him in order to access the Helotes Creek Linear Park.
Sounds good to me.
Clarification? Okay, Bert, did you wanna say something else?
Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, whenever we were in Vegas at the convention, didn't they also want, as a part of all this, didn't they want a population and or housing density study, or?
Yes, they did, and we've actually already completed that.
And I think you did that yourself, right?
No, it was too complex for us to do it in-house. They wanted the whole retail trade area.
Okay.
So we have purchased that, and that's a part of this year's budget that y'all have in the revenue and expenditure report. So that's already been done. It's actually on the wall in development services. It's been sent out to all of our contacts that we made in Las Vegas, and it's also on the EDC website already.
Okay. That's what they wanted up there, just for clarification to start, moving the process along.
And what that revealed was that over the next number of years, there will be an additional 34,000 homes to the north of us.
Right, let's see. One second, we had Keith speak, I've spoken, Bert has spoken, do we have anyone that hasn't spoken? Bert, or,
Just one question.
excuse me, Caleb or Drew, I'll get it right.
Mr. Buck, at one time, had many plans for his business, his area. Has he declined all that, and now we're...
No, he still is very much interested in having it developed like you had seen in the past. But he is limited on the amount of time that he can spend on that project. I think he's well, I'm not gonna get into his business, but he's limited for time. But he still wants to see it developed in a mixed-use, 2 or 3 story complex with apartment living at the top.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to be the developer. He understands that being the developer of that project is going to be time prohibitive for him, and so he wants us to bring in an outside developer that he can work with and develop that site. He still wants to retain some sort of ownership over that site.
Okay.
So how that plays out, that's gonna be between him and the developer, and it's also makes this challenging, because a lot of developers, they just wanna buy the property and do whatever they wanna do. So,
Right.
that's another component of developing that site, is that he still wants to maintain some ownership in that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Pat?
Just, one comment on that.
Oh, wait, by the rules, I'm supposed to allow someone that hasn't spoken to speak before you, since you've already spoken, just
haven't
generally,
spoken
hold
on
on a
this.
second. Did you want to speak? Okay, go ahead, Pat.
I don't think I spoke on this one, did I?
Oh, I had you down, I'm sorry, I had you down as speaking, but go ahead, Pat, I'm sorry.
I just, wanted to ask Rick, I've seen Bob's original design on that, and he's got a nice plan. Does that, will that any way interact in this, or just kind of verify that he would be able to do that primarily, or?
Yeah, his plan, actually, he had a lot of architectural renderings, if I recall, of that project. So if we go with Big Red Dog or another firm, they would actually be able to utilize, since he is the architect that created those, utilize those and put them into their plan. So the cost, his package, in a sense, could be a better package with the dollar amount that we're talking about, because he's already produced a lot of that work, and they can just lump it in and focus more on the engineering side.
The only issue I have with it, I don't have any issue with Bob's property down there, because he's being very cooperative and trying to work with the city and always has. But I don't think that it's gonna be much benefit to you to try to develop something on the scenic loop site with the restriction that's on there right now. Without remediation or some guidance, you're not gonna be able to show anything on that property except the front 3 or 4 acres that's not included in that habitat restriction. You'd be totally guessing to whether that could ever be approved. That's something that'll have to be done once the plan's drawn, and go through the process to see if they'll even approve it and let you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to address that in these land use plans is to have that caveat that there is critical habitat on that site. If you had to develop that property under those restrictions, this is how it would develop this way. If somebody was able to remove that from the property, it could be developed in this fashion. I think that's basically gonna have to be an asterisk in that report.
Is that clarified for everyone? All right, so we're definitely looking for the motion that Rick referred to for the entire, unless someone still has something else they wanted to speak to on the budget. But we're looking for a motion for the entire budget approved with the currently one change made to the marketing line that we've already voted on.
I'm all for, I'd like to move that we vote on the discussed fiscal year budget for 2014-2015, with the addition, or the change of adding the 50,000 to the marketing slot.
I second.
Second by Caleb. If there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Our budget is approved. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to item 11. If I can find it in my list here. 10.
Keep giving crap leg.
Item 11 is discussion and direction and/or appropriate action on review of applications submitted for the business improvement. Business improvement grant program. What Glenn has handed out to you is pretty much a sheet to put your notations on for applying points. This shows eligibility requirements, and also then our consideration and how we make our decisions. This was part of the program documents that we approved. Gentlemen, would you go ahead and, talk about this item, give us an intro, please?
Yes. Included in your packet, obviously, was the program guidelines to give you, to refresh at least your memory of what was approved prior for this program, for the Business Improvement Grant. We received 2 completed applications, one from Gables Ice Cream Sliders and then one from Cool Kids. The third application from Karen's Kernels was not able to be completed in time for this meeting, so that would have to be considered at a subsequent meeting. I can tell you that all the documentation for these 2 has been submitted, been approved, been reviewed by the SBDC. They had provided all of the financial documents required, and that is why they are included on this afternoon's agenda.
Okay. These all were in your packet. This document that's on the table here gives you the items that we're looking at. If you have questions on either one, do we have the applicants here today? We do? Okay. Hi. Why don't you go ahead and, if they would like to say, they don't have to say anything, but we're welcome to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Donnie Will.
Would you come up to the
on
mic,
up,
please?
and
Thank
we'll
you.
give you a chance to speak if you'd like.
I thought you could hear me from that. I'm Donnie Gwell, and I'm going to be opening Gables Ice Cream Sliders. It's in the Helotes Town Center right over here by Walmart. Actually, space 102, so it's the second one from the front. There'll be Marco's Pizza in the front, and then next to it myself. The concept for the store is I'll have ice cream, cookies. You'll be able to come in, so there comes the ice cream slider. You'll be able to come in, pick out, and say, I want an oatmeal cookie and a chocolate chip cookie, and I want vanilla ice cream, and we put together like a little ice cream sandwich for you. Then, of course, the customers will be able to buy ice cream or cookies or soda. I'm going to have some old-fashioned candy, floats, and kind of an older feel store, I guess you'd say. The logo is kind of retro and doing some like I'm gonna have stained concrete floors, that kind of thing. So kind of not so modern looking.
Great, sounds good.
I don't know. Do you have questions for me?
Anyone have any particular questions for the gentleman?
Did you bring samples?
Not yet. As a matter of fact, we just got back. My sign's going to be installed tomorrow. I just found that out a few minutes ago. I got an email, and the city just approved the plans, and so they're just starting work. I guess yesterday they started work.
Good.
I have
Sounds
a
good.
question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the suggested motion. It has both Cool Kids Race Cell and Gables Ice Cream Sliders in the amount not, in an amount not to exceed 80% of total cost of $4,000. Does this mean $4,000 for each or $2,000 for one and $2,000 for the
It
other?
would be $4,000 for each.
That's
'Cause
the program stipulates that it can be a maximum of $5,000, but the applicant would have to provide 20% of that amount. So
Because I don't remember it being.
if they do more, they may have more things, they may want to spend more, but
I thought it
as
was
far as
2,000. I thought that,
as far as the EDC investment in it would be up to it would be up to $4,000.
but we don't have to go up to 4,000. Do we have to go up to 4,000?
If they submit, billings up to that amount,
I guess I'm just trying to find the amount, the money amount for each one specifically.
Maybe
and
you
I
can
can't
help with that.
find it.
any other questions for this gentleman, or can you sit down? Go, if we have any, we'll ask you, sir. I
Okay.
appreciate your coming.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I see.
Did you want to come up and introduce yourself, or,
Rosie.
well, let's go ahead and do the
Oh, Rosie,
introductions,
okay.
and then we'll, get into the specifics of the,
Hi, I'm Rose McLaughlin, and I'm the owner of Cool Kids Resale. And we basically just provide children for 12 years and under, you know, clothing, baby gear, toys, shoes, jackets, just pretty much everything children need under the age of 12. And it's resale, so they could either bring it in and sell it to us, or we could do in-store credit, which, you know, is a really good option for them,
Oh, I see, okay.
customers.
All right, anybody have any
And
questions?
the location is in the same, the.
It's right next to Walmart, yeah, it's in
Yeah,
the
the
same
Lowe's Town
shopping
Center.
center, uh-huh.
And this is for a sign, is that what the?
Yeah, it's for the signage, storefront sign.
Do you, well, part of the program would be to sit down with a chosen consultant to assist with their needs and to get insight into what they can do and give them ideas and whatnot. So in your case, the sign itself is how much?
The sign itself, I think, was $4,800.
$4,800. And then they would have an opportunity to do additional things, whatever they come up with the consultant that they choose in our program. We have several on our list. Correct? Okay. Any other questions for this lady here? All right.
You have a temporary one up right now, I think, right?
Oh, what?
You have a temporary sign up there right now, right?
It's a banner, yeah.
Banner,
Okay. All right. If we have any other questions, we'll,
Okay.
thank you for coming. I know it's hard to get away from your businesses, so we appreciate it.
Artie,
Yes, sir.
just a point of clarification, it says on the evaluation, it's 10 points or for sales tax revenue generated above, it's $5,000 total with the city and EDC's sales
We're
tax.
talking about sales that
1.5%.
that these businesses,
Right, it's not just EDC's, 0.5%.
Wait,
It's the total
those,
city.
number one is about what they bring in sales and what amount of sales
I know.
tax they will bring into the city, yes?
You're talking
Oh,
about the whole 1.5%.
Okay, good question, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
The whole
Yeah.
1.5.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so far, what I've gotten projections from Gables Ice Cream Sliders, it's about $320,000, I think, anticipated revenue. So that would put him kind of in that 7-point range on that 1.5%. I wasn't 100% sure with Rose, but I did talk with the SBDC, Crystal Darby, the business advisor, and felt that hers would be in the 5-point range.
Yeah, you gotta be over $233,000 tax available.
Gosh, darn.
Okay? All right, back to the specific discussions on, both of these businesses are eligible and they've met all the requirements for eligibility. Now it's a matter of deciding whether we would like to give them the grant. We did have the point system within our documentation so that we would have a way to differentiate between multiple applicants. Right now we have 2.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the business improvement grant for Gables Ice Cream Sliders and Cool Kids Resale in the total amount of $8,000.
All right, do we have a second?
A second.
Second, by Keith. All right, is there any other discussion?
This is gonna go on the next year's fiscal budget, correct?
It will come out of the line item for the big program, which we have a larger amount in there, so there will be room for other applicants to come at a future
Be
time.
paid after the 1st October.
Correct. Well, there is some remaining funds in this year's budget for it, so it depends on when
Okay.
these items happen.
Okay,
Okay, is that?
That's fine.
Is that clear? All right. If there are no other questions, the motion is to approve up to the maximum, for each, applicant, Gables Ice Cream Sliders and Cool Kids Resale, for, these applications. as to what you need to do next. All right, thank you. All right, let's move on and get the show over with. Wow, it's only 2:05. Pretty good. Okay. Item 12. This particular item is going to be discussion and direction only. And as you can see in the agenda item request form, there's a little bit of background. The submittals have come in. We had 7. You should have had, these were made available to you electronically, and there are also copies here in City Hall if you wanted to check out a hard copy. They are extensive numbers of pages. The suggested motion is to create a subcommittee to review and score the proposals and submit a recommendation at the next scheduled meeting. This is how we have done this in the past with other RFQs that have gone out for Old Town, for example, or even for engineering on the water and sewer project. And so that would be the suggested motion.
I move to open discussion on agenda item 12, the Lotus Linear Creek Linear Park Project.
All right, Pat made a motion to open the discussion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bert. All right, go ahead, Pat. Why don't you start?
I found out a little more background on this probably than the rest of y'all have, have studied this and talked to Glenn about it some already, and I spent about 2 hours Monday going through all 7 of these proposals, and they're a stack about this thick. It's, every one of them did a good job of marketing their firm is all I can say about it. It's kind of hard to determine on RFQ is just a request for qualifications, and they put everything in the world. I gave Glenn a evaluation form I made up on it and rated all 7 of the firms, and I don't know how we should best approach this. A lot of it's going to end up being subjective because there's no way to assign absolute criteria that you can do a rating scale on. And I found out also as a little background, we didn't discuss this before the RFQ went out, but City Council had already approved putting the RFQ out and or approved taking action on it, and so would we once we got the requirements back from TxDOT for their final requirements, so we could proceed with it, and they came back in basically at the same time we got the approval on the grant. So we had everything set in place, and staff went ahead and put out the request for qualifications. And I don't know what the best way to approach this is. Subcommittee, I've already been through all of it. If you want to take a couple more people and go through the whole thing and come up with a rating schedule or have staff involved in it or how you want to do it, it's kind of up in the air to me. The only comments I had about this, there's a couple of architectural firms in there. And my primary criteria in looking at it was to look at the person, look at staffing, their management objectives, their financial stability, their experience in the field. And all of them have done a good job of writing that up, but some of them have very little staff, and they're subcontracting everything out to 4 or 5 different firms to put it together. And the approach to me looked more logical to pick someone that could do most of the work in-house, so you're not having 4 or 5 different firms putting a margin on this thing when they put it together. And I don't know, I basically came up with L&B as the best alternative on it out of the group. The only other one we really know is Leonard Young. And L&B's contract is using Leonard as part of the process as a subcontractor. And several of them, there's 3 different ones that are all using the same subcontractors, basically, or similar, nearly all the same ones. So I don't know, the one other one, MBC or something, looked real good, but we have absolutely no experience with it. We've got a track record with L&B, and they've got Leonard. They've only got 2 subcontractors, and we know Leonard does good work, and they do good work. So.
Yeah, if you could, in your comments, the board could tell us if this suggested motion sounds good to you or not, and then any other things you want to add to what we have done that in the past. I believe it usually is city staff, which means Rick. I believe the mayor may have weighed in. I don't remember. Yeah, Rick, the mayor, Glenn, and I, and then there were at least 2 board members, on our committee last time. Do you guys recall? Yeah. Was that water and sewer design? Yeah. And were you on that one too? Okay. So that's what we're looking for in direction here today. So do you wanna add to what you've said or not on that? You kinda said that, you just
Yeah, I've
didn't know.
got no objection to it that same way.
Okay.
And, Keith's definitely qualified, probably more qualified than I am, but look at the contractual experience and what's actually involved with. There's a huge process involved with the environmental and all the other permits we have to get, and it's gonna probably kick us 6 to 9 months down the road before we even get together and determine how much money we're gonna spend and what that costs out of the room.
Bert, you were the second on that. Did you wanna say anything in addition?
I pretty much agree with Pat on everything he said. I look at them all electronically, which is really nice. You can sit at home and look at it. Anyway, the only thing I did notice with the IDS engineering is they did have 2 insurance claims against them. Just for your information, whoever's gonna be on the committee, there's 2 insurance claims against the IDS engineering that they admitted to. And then on the MVC, people, I didn't see their last sheet with the, electronically I didn't see their last sheet that said if they had any pending litigation or anything electronically I did. Maybe I need to look at that. But as Pat said, it seems like they're all kind of intertwined. They all use a lot of the same people for the same thing, and it's gonna be a difficult, thing to pick out somebody. So I guess maybe a smaller committee like that would be the way to go. That'd be my recommendation. Let me see, did I have anything else? And then there is a couple of them, like Pat said, that like Tierra Design Group, who LMB uses, I believe, a lot. They just have 7 staff members, so I guess they would be contracting a lot of it out. So that'd be all things to consider on the committee. So that's all I got.
All right, anybody else on this side wanna speak to this?
I have 2. Did any of them, I didn't have a chance to go through all of them, did any of them, had they worked on a linear creek project before? All of them have?
Not all of them, I don't think.
Pretty well, they all have closely related experience. It may not have been a linear park, but different types of parks. Several of them were involved in the Almus Park, several different ones have done different phases of that. There's the Hartberger Park.
Whether or not they subcontract out, don't we have a dollar amount to pay these individuals? I mean, whatever company we choose, how does that work?
The
And
way
is
I've
it in this budget, or is it this the money that we're gonna be, getting the C of O for?
This would you like to clarify that point, please?
Yeah, you would be getting C of O money for the engineering.
And the way, an RFQ works, it's a request for
For the engineering plus, it's essentially the 20% plus the engineering.
Okay, and what the way RFQs work for professional, design firms, industry has it that they present their qualifications, and then you choose them based on qualification. That's the way it works. And then they will tell you, based on what their estimation of cost for the project is, how much they will submit a, estimate of their cost.
Well, what I don't understand then is how we are gonna go out for a C of O, and we've already got a specific monetary thing attached to it.
Well, in this
Don't we?
case.
We have money attached to the C of O already.
Go ahead, Rick.
We are estimating, we know what the 20% cost is, but we are estimating 10% for engineering.
Of the entire, was it, how many million?
1.5 roughly million.
Yes.
So we are estimating 10%. Now, there will be, again, after you select somebody, you have to go through the contract process, and there's the negotiation back and forth, and that's where you dwindle down on what that dollar amount will be. But TxDOT uses 10% for engineering, and so because this is a TxDOT grant, we use the same percentage.
So it's 1.2 million, right?
1.5?
1.5, so 10% of 1.5.
Is about $150,000.
It's basically a negotiation. Once you pick the firm, And if they won't get in, you can always go back and go to another firm if you can't work out something new.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I wasn't
Go ahead.
finished. I just wanted to say,
I'll be here a while.
you're saying that whichever firm we end up picking, they can, again, it shouldn't matter that they have to subcontract out. The price should be in the ballpark, all of them. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, you will negotiate the contract with the lead firm, and you really don't care what they're paying everybody else. You care what you're paying the lead firm.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think, so I guess whoever's on this committee shouldn't concern themselves if they're gonna be, subcontracting out, as long as the people they're subcontracting out to, I mean, you said they're all like almost incestuous, everybody's working with everybody else, right?
Well,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I do think there's some validity to that because, I mean, and this is just purely anecdotal and personal, but, my personal experience, but in dealing with contractors, and I've dealt with them personally and in the legal context, but sometimes a contractor that is able to, use its own people, sometimes they frankly do better work, not always, but I just think it is a factor to consider.
Okay, well,
And it's
that's-
not, it doesn't necessarily weigh one way or the other, but.
Bert,
And they can be cheaper as well, because it's all the services.
Okay, well, then I guess it would be a consideration. Correct.
Let's let Bert, he's been very patient here, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't, anybody
You're
else?
okay?
I just was wondering, I guess it's Givler, did they actually give us a bid? 1.3 million, 1.4 million? I thought that's what was in that, so what,
Well,
I
in the
don't have-
RFQ, they would have had some
I know
idea.
it's an RFQ, but that, I believe there was a bid in there of $1,359,301, so.
For the
it's
whole, for the whole
That's
thing?
what it said.
I have not reviewed any of the RFQs, because I was waiting on y'all's direction as to how you wanted to proceed, so I don't
So
know
one at one
if they
point-
did include a dollar amount, but then you're talking about for the
That's just
whole
one-
project.
the whole
But if they included dollar figures in their submittal, you can go ahead and use that as a basis in your judgment. You're just not supposed to ask.
Well, they're the only ones that did, out of all seven.
We cannot require that they submit bids, but
That's
they, the
correct.
pricing that
And
they
it
did.
isn't really a bid, it's about qualifications. You're supposed to select based on qualifications. And other references and, historic, projects that they've done. Okay, so the real question here is we need to give direction or, we can even vote on this if you like, as how this is, we are gonna review and evaluate these 7 firms. Would someone like to, make a motion? You can make a suggested motion, or you can make a different motion. Yes, Bert?
I'd like another question, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can we add one more person to the committee, because I would like to be on, I think Keith and Pat need to be on, because that's kind of, but I would like to be on the committee too. Can we add one more person, please?
You're suggesting that? Sounds
I'm
fine.
I'm suggesting.
Okay. If you would like to go ahead and make a motion, you may.
Well, I make a motion that we have a committee for regarding the proposals for the engineering services of the Lotus Creek Linear Park to be, the mayor, city administrator, the EDC specialist, Commissioner Baez, Wooten, and Houston.
All right.
What about Garner?
Oh, I'm sorry, and President.
Yeah.
I have done it in the past. It's totally
I'll
up to you
second it.
guys.
Well, you forgot my name along those.
Okay.
Well, but that would
I'm
be,
the other one.
wouldn't that be a quorum though? 4 is a
Oh,
quorum.
is that right?
So, yeah.
It is a quorum, is that a problem?
Well, then I'll bow out. I'll delete
I
mine.
would think it's a committee at that point.
No,
Well-
no, there is no quorum involved, because you were just reviewing them and you're sending those comments to staff.
Okay.
We're consolidating and bringing them back to you, that's not a quorum.
All right.
Thank you,
In this
sir.
case, the more the merrier. It just makes it goes into the pot.
Oh,
And makes a.
thank
yeah,
goodness I'm not
stronger
studying
pot.
that group.
Whatever.
We're good with that.
Yes.
Whatever the motion was.
All right, the motion, and then we'll need a second, is to create a subcommittee to review and score the proposals and submit a recommendation at the next scheduled meeting, or we don't even have to say that, but to submit a recommendation to the board.
And I already seconded.
Okay, let me ask this question, because we do not necessarily have to bring it back because if we agree with the 5, 6, whatever the number that is, come together and score it, that is it. Or is there any reason to bring it back then, is the question?
If I can,
Yes.
I think that it would be wise for you to bring that back to the board and have them approve the selection.
Approve these?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I don't feel comfortable with the committee making this.
And I also think that since there's 4 members of the EDC on the committee, if one member can't make it, you should still have the meeting if everybody else can make it.
okay.
What do you think?
Gotcha. Okay, so again, the suggested motion, and I will make the motion, then unless you want to make first?
No, go ahead.
To create a subcommittee, or was I restating your motion, sir?
Just,
It's already on the
I think
floor.
Okay.
think
I am
we're good.
restating, the motion by Bert Wise to create a subcommittee to review and score the proposals and submit a recommendation to the board based on, the scoring of the subcommittee. Do I have a second? Or
I'll
does
second
Bert have a second? I'm sorry.
I have a second the first time.
Okay, Drew, I didn't hear you, sorry. Okay, Drew seconded that. Do you have anything to say
3
to that?
times.
Okay. Do you have anything to say to that?
Good luck to them, and I
Okay,
hope they get the
all right.
right person.
All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, that's approved, and we will have our work cut out for us. All right, let's go on to item number 13, and then we have a report. In reviewing things, it became apparent that according to our bylaws, by the end of, for each term, officers need to be selected and voted on by the board at the end of each year by September 30th. That's coming up soon, so that's why this is on the agenda. So we have, we're filled by appointment, but the board of directors shall elect a president, vice president, secretary, and any other officers that you consider necessary to serve as executive officers of the corporation. And so, we need to have a motion for those positions. I believe currently we have a president, vice president, secretary, just 3 positions.
And the vice president is Keith Mulestein, is that correct? Or is it
No,
Drew? Oh, you're the
I'm the
secretary.
Keith is the secretary, correct?
Drew's the vice president.
Drew's the VP.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam, I make a motion that we discuss and take action on agenda item number 13.
Second.
All right. Who was the second, I'm sorry? Okay, Pat seconded. Bert, go ahead.
I'd like to, unless somebody doesn't want to, I would like to make the motion that, for president, I'd like to nominate Ardith Garner. For vice president, Drew Helms, and secretary, Keith Milston.
Okay, we had a second?
Second.
Got a second? Okay.
May I just say that I think y'all have been doing a bang-up job.
Yeah, we ought to at least ask those people if they really want to do it.
Oh, they do, they're smiling.
As long as she's here, I'm always liking to do it.
Oh.
The one time she wasn't, you weren't, and Keith took over. Yeah, he was
So
pretty
it
good
works.
too.
We got it covered. Okay. So if there are no objections, let's go to the vote.
Is there any term limits on it? 12 years for you now?
Actually, I think I'm 11 officially. There was a president before me for a
You
year.
hadn't
Glad
quite
there's no term
surpassed
limits.
deputy auditor.
So, all in favor then of, the select, let's see, what, the election of President Ardith Garner, Vice President Drew Helms, and Secretary Keith Mulestein. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approved. Item number 14. And we'll be out of here in 5 minutes, or close to it.
You got 5 minutes, Glenn.
You got
Pouring down rain, you might want to stick around for a while.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. We had some rain, that's good.
4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Okay, item 14, the first one is the Google 360 virtual tours. I did put in backup documentation showing all the businesses that have received their virtual tour and that have been published. To date, we have gotten 64 virtual tours. So we have exceeded the minimum requirement, I believe, was set back at 54. And then we still have month of September and October to perform additional virtual tours. The second item is an update on the design and construction of our water and sewer along Bandera Road from Circle A to Scenic Loop. As mentioned during the work session, there have been new developments. SAWS will be funding some wastewater improvements. So the EDC and the City of Helotes no longer have to consider improvements at the Iron Horse lift station. And so LNV Engineering is now proceeding forward with the full construction plan documents. So it's great news for us. Actually, the improvements SAWS is looking at, it's over $5 million.
Wow.
It's going to be a big help, to the city as a whole, because there won't be any capacity concerns for, future development.
And they came up on their own and did it.
It did. And the last one is an update on current commercial developments. We did not have that on the agenda in a couple of sessions, so did want to include that on here and make sure everyone was aware of some of the new businesses that have opened here in Helotes. Most recently, we had Bricks and Minifigs, Ivy Enterprises in Old Town Helotes, Cash Store, Helotes Town Center, Cool Kids Resale Shop in Helotes Town Center, Metro PCS, also Helotes Town Center. There's Great Clips that'll be coming in, Rhodes Driving School, Helotes Town Center. So that facility, I believe there's, depending on how they would be divided up, 3 or 4 spaces left in Helotes Town Center. You have J. Gibson Salon, which is in Old Town, taking over the Happy Hatters Tea House, if you're familiar with that. Marco's Pizza is moving forward on their facility at Helotes Town Center. Met Donnie Gill with Gable's Ice Cream Sliders. His plans have been approved and he started his interior finish out. Shops at Old Town Helotes, that would be Mr. Dempsey's property down by Line 101. That is under construction. I think he has 3 buildings plus the restroom facilities under construction. When those are complete and leased, they'll be starting the rest. Compass Bank, to my knowledge, they're back on track. They keep falling off a little bit. And they're continually working with their architect and contractors to get that building demoed and the new one built. And then the plan is to subdivide and sell the corner parcel to Walgreens if that comes to fruition. Lucasio Properties was put on hold. He's decided to expand another one of his properties. As soon as he completes that expansion for one of his tenants, he'll move back. And that property is next to Tractor Supply. His proposed plan was building 2 retail/office buildings. I want to say they were around 4,000 square foot each. Still waiting, on KFC. As far as prospects, I think we can say AutoZone has expressed an interest in Helotes and is reviewing a parcel of land here in Helotes next to Bill Miller. They're in their due diligence process to make sure everything is feasible for them. And then one item we put in here, we received from the San Antonio EDF was iFly Dallas. It is an indoor skydiving facility, so it's an entertainment venue. They only have one location currently in Texas.
Is that like a wind tunnel?
It basically,
Yeah.
yes, just
You're
vertical.
Real
So
tall building.
you jump in and then go. They have an interest in building a second location in Texas, and San Antonio metro area has been identified as one of their targets. The San Antonio EDF does not incentivize retail or entertainment venues, so they have put it out there to all the other communities if they're interested. So I just wanted to get some input from the board if That would be a project they would entertain,
The iFly?
the iFly. Yeah, they're requesting incentives.
Does it hurt?
Does it hurt?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, does it?
I don't know, the incentives seem very, excessive.
Right.
The incentives are very excessive. I was very taken aback by what they were wanting from, because I don't think it's that this is just gonna be the second one in Texas.
Correct.
And, I would have to see their revenue and expense report or something, or their financials, before I would, wanna give them that kind of incentive.
They say-
I
yeah.
wouldn't give them that kind of incentive. It's just way
Based
too
on
much.
their existing locations, they can pull tourists from 130 miles.
130 miles. I just,
Is this similar to what's in Austin? Someplace like this in Austin, right? I've heard of people going to it.
It's the same as, if you've ever been to Vegas, they have one in Vegas. And it's exactly the same. Basically, you just fall into this, or you walk into this room and then they turn on the fans and then you kind of float up with your little
How is it, Rick?
uniform on. Oh, I've been there before. It's cool. It's cool. I do agree with Councilwoman Massey that they are asking for a lot of
Okay.
incentives. I mean, they're asking for almost everything.
And, I mean, they do have in their quick facts that they generate 6.5 million in annual revenue.
if that's the case, then why do they need so much incentive?
Good point.
Well, and that isn't sales taxable, correct?
That's the other thing.
That would not produce sales tax because it's a service.
It's a-
What do you, it's a service?
I did
It's an
look that up,
entertainment.
and, Fiesta Texas, for example, is kind of like that. It'd be a fee to get in, and they do collect tax.
They collect sales tax?
Yes.
We would have to look into that a little bit
Yeah,
more.
but I would, in the interest of time, just, and you guys can pop in, but I would generally feel like the direction to Glenn and staff would be to see if they're interested in coming our way, and then we'll talk about the rest of it at that time. Does that work for everybody? I don't think I don't feel like with the direction you've given that you can say, yeah, we're gonna give you everything you want. No, but if they're interested, we wanna talk. Is that a good message? Okay.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting, adjourning the meeting at 2:32. Thanks for coming.